Welcome to a new edition of Sound Off from Vineyard Sound Entertainment, home of Cape Cod Smooth Jazz Station, WNEJ at VSC.LLC. Please stay tuned for more episodes coming your way. Now, locals here on Cape Cod know that Vineyard Sound is a beautiful but treacherous waterway between Cape Cod and Martha's Vineyard. While many stories have been written about ships lost in that area, we have the author of an intriguing story of a ship lost at sea in a different location, just a little bit north of Cape Cod. Today, I have the pleasure of interviewing renowned author and screenwriter, Steven Dahill, author of Secrets of Mary Celeste. Thanks for joining us, Steve. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fabulous, Vanessa. Thank you for having me.
Yes, it's my pleasure. Now, Steve, before we jump into this fabulous book, I really would like to tell the readers a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm from the local area. My family's had a house on Cape Cod for over 50 years in South Yarmouth. I currently have a cottage in Buzzards Bay, so I overlook the water there, and I live up in Boston. My family is descended from sailing families. On my father's side, I'm a descendant of two Irish rebels that were actually hung by the British in the 1798 uprising in Ireland. On my mother's side, I'm a descendant of Captain John Barry, who's known as the father of the United States Navy, and his brother is my direct descendant, and he was a privateer captain whose ship sunk on its way back from France with supplies for George Washington's army. So on both sides, I'm a little rebel and a little bit of a sea captain.
I love that. That's so interesting. Now, what made you want to write this book, Secrets of Mary Celeste?
When we were kids growing up in Mattapoisett on the water and then down in South Yarmouth, my grandmother, who was born in Ireland, said, if you children don't behave, you're going to disappear like the crew of the Mary Celeste. And I didn't know who Mary Celeste was, but I didn't want to be disappearing until the ice cream truck came.
Right.
So that, from a very early age, I've heard about the mystery of Mary Celeste. And yeah. I now have a cottage in Marion, Massachusetts, where the actual family was from, and their descendants are still around.
Right. Oh, that's so interesting. I love that. Your mom seems like she has a sense of humor. I like her already. Now, give us a little synopsis of this book, just a little bit, not so much where readers can't get it, but just give us a little bit of some detail about this book.
Well, first of all, it starts with a real story, and I based it on the real story and wrote a novel around it. The real story is a ship was found in the middle of the ocean with nobody on it, and to this day, no one has any idea where they went or why they left the ship, because the ship was not sinking. My story is about a fictional rescue mission, of one of the sons that was left behind, and he hired a smuggler to go find his parents and his little sister, and that's what those stories about.
I love that. That's so interesting. Now, this book is based on a ship in the 1900s, right? Or is the 1800s?
1872 was the real
so
ship.
Right around that, okay, general area. Traveling between Europe and America. Can you give the audience a little background on American history in that century regarding ships sailing from Europe to America, why they were sailing, and just the struggles that they went through going between the two continents?
Well, there was a great deal of commerce. America, for the first 250 years of our history, was largely a bunch of seaports on the eastern coast. There were no highways. There was no Mid-Cape Highway. There was no Route 6. And for ships to go from Boston to Barnstable Harbor or to Newport or New York or to Philadelphia, they had to go by water. So there was a great much of transportation on ships, just like the Mary Celeste. Brigs and schooners with one or two masts, 100 feet, 50 feet, 200 feet. And they traveled with everything from lumber to iron ore, coal, and then soft goods like food and beverages. And they traveled between Boston, largely Boston to Newport was the greatest.
Okay.
That was the Mass Turnpike in the 19th century.
Right. So Newport was pretty big along with Boston. I didn't know that.
Yeah, Boston was the epicenter of trade, particularly in the early part of the 19th century where this book was taking place. Newport was also big. And then by the time you got to the mid of the 19th century, New York had much larger harbor and greater access to the waterways to the west, as well as more dock space.
Interesting. I love
New
that.
York took off.
Now, this is a very unique subject. And upon doing research on you, I found that, you know, that you actually are into sailing yourself, right? Do you enjoy sailing?
I am. I grew up sailing on Bass River in South Yarmouth. We sailed out of there my whole childhood. And I race sailboats right now all across Nantucket Sound, Buzzards Bay, and Vineyard Sound.
Wow, I love that. I've never been sailing before, but I'm getting really interested in it now, hearing you speak about it. Now, getting back to the book, as you stated before, so this book is, would you say half fiction and half real life events? How much of each would you say it is?
Well, it's a good question. The book is fiction. I'm a storyteller, not a historian. And there are people out there. There are people out there that have spent thousands of hours investigating the real mystery of the Mary Celeste. What I have at the core of the book is the actual story, what I think and some of my characters think, and others think what really happened. And so my characters go through, was it pirates? Nope. Was it madness? Was it sickness? Was it an unnatural event? Was it a tidal wave? What drove the people to leave the ship? As a matter of fact, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, who wrote the Sherlock Holmes stories, his first book was all about the Mary Celeste.
Really? Tell me more about that. Well, what was his first book you said?
It's called J. Habachuk's Statement, and it's not a very well-known book. He did better with that when he got to Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, he got a little better as he went on.
He did. He was 24 years old, and he was a ship's doctor on a British whaling ship.
Wow.
And when he heard about the Mary Celeste, he actually quit the sea and started writing. And his first book was about the Mary Celeste mystery. And a very interesting point. One of my talks that I gave recently, a gentleman came up to me, and he was a seaman, and he had been to Gibraltar near Spain and had found records that the captain of the Mary Celeste, his name was Captain Benjamin Spooner Briggs, actually met Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, and they knew each other. And so when the Mary Celeste was announced, the ship was found with nobody on board. Conan Doyle knew the captain and decided to turn his life into writing. And the mysteries of Sherlock Holmes are right out of the Mary Celeste. They're impossible, but he solved them.
I love that. And I love Sherlock Holmes. So that's really, really interesting. Speaking about books, now this book is actually a trilogy, right? Tell us more about the other books that you have coming out.
It is. When I did the research for it, I found that the first half of the 19th century was a period of explosive American commerce. The early part of the century was about privateers, the War of 1812. So I have a book coming out about that called Privateer. The second book in the series is the first book that you'll be able to buy, which is The Secrets of Mary Celeste. And that was all about smugglers and trade and disreputable people. And the last book is coming out soon, is called Clipper Wars, all about the clipper ship era where the California gold rush exploded because of all of the people coming from New York and Boston headed for San Francisco in 1850.
Right. That's so interesting. Now, you do touch a little bit on the slave trade in your book, Secrets of Mary Celeste. Tell our audience more about the roles that the slaves played in the trading in America.
Yeah, this is a dark part of American history. And the more I did the research, the darker it came, frankly. Some of the same people, some of the same ship owners had a ship like the Mary Celeste, similar size. And sometimes they used it for privateering if there was a war going on, like the Revolution or the War of 1812, or the war between America and France that was never declared in 1798. But after the wars, the ships were also used for slave trade. And Newport was one of the leading ports where the ships would leave full of goods for sale over in Europe. They would sell the goods for cash, sail down to the African coast, purchase enslaved peoples, bring them back to the Caribbean or in Charleston before the slave trade was made illegal in the United States. They traded the slaves for sugarcane and brought the sugarcane back to Newport where they made rum, and the whole triangle started again. They called it the Molasses Triangle, and they never used the term slave trade. So the people that were making all the money got free profits, and the ship left clean and came back clean, but in between, it was a horrific experience for the people that were taken.
Right. Absolutely. Tell us a little bit about not only the different types of trades, but the pirates. I'm really interested in the pirates and the people that were actually responsible for a lot of the reasons that, these ships ended up disappearing, or the people, got killed.
Yeah, the pirate story in New England is absolutely fascinating, because in the
Yeah.
early part of the 18th century, around 1720, there were over 4,000 pirates roaming the Caribbean. So there was a lot of people that were in pirating, and most of them were in their 20s, young people, young men, and they really did drink a lot, and they attacked islands and ports
Like the movie.
with unbelievable violence. And they finally outlawed it with the King of England, the first King George, and offered amnesty. Well, 500 pirates took the amnesty, 500 were hung, and the other 2,000 kind of went their way. So piracy in the 17th, 18th, and even into the 19th century was a big business. And there were many people that thought, well, maybe that's what happened to the Mary Celeste. Pirates came alongside and killed the people,
Right.
and meant to take the ship, but something happened. So that's one of the theories that I have discounted, but others still believe it could have happened.
Okay. Speaking of the book, your main antagonist, Captain Cordis Grant, he's a smuggler, right? Tell us more about his role in it.
Captain Gant is a damaged kind of an anti-hero. He's not a hero, but he's not Darth Vader either.
Okay.
In the first book, Privateer, it goes through his life in great detail, and he had a very, very violent experience during the war that affected his whole psyche for the rest of his life. And you'll meet him again in both Mary Celeste and in Clipper Wars. That doesn't excuse his behavior, but there were many ship captains that treated their crews terribly, and these are paid crews that they would pay these people and treat them harshly. And he was an example of that, based on a real life character that I found in my research. That when this particular captain got to San Francisco, his crew turned on him, and he was arrested and hung by the authorities in San Francisco because of the behavior how he treated his crew, and that was not uncommon in those days.
Wow,
it was a tough life to be a sailor.
I can imagine. Now, coming back to the 22nd century, now, why is this story such an important novel relating to relative times?
My whole Age of Sail series, one of the common themes is it's all about immigration. We are all immigrants in this country, unless we're Native Americans. And as such, most of us, us or our families, in my case, my family, came to America by ship, and most of the people that got here came by sailing ship. So sailing ships, particularly in the 17th and the 18th and 19th centuries, were central to the formation of this country. Even our language is littered with sailing terms. If you ever said, geez, I'm not coming to work this morning because I'm under the weather. Well, under the weather is a sailing term when sailors would seasick and they put them down below to get better. There are thousands of terms like this. We don't even think about them, but they're based on the nautical history of this country. So I would submit that the importance of sailing ships in harbors from Hyannis to Falmouth to Barnstable to Chatham to Provincetown were instrumental on how fast this country grew, how strong we grew, and we have a heritage that we should be proud of.
I love that. History is so important. It's one of my favorite subjects. And it's really important for people nowadays to really understand the foundation of this country, So I'm just really curious, where can people find Secrets of Mary Celeste?
They can get Mary Celeste on your favorite online retailer, e-tailer, whose trucks are in your neighborhood 24/7 these days.
Exactly.
You can get them from my publisher, a fantastic publisher called Jump Master Press, all one word.com, and you can get the book there. And it's starting to show up in some libraries and historical societies around the coast. You can get them in the Sipacan Historical Society just over the bridge in Marion. And soon it will be in more stores and distributors around the country. And if you happen to live in Boston, I'd be glad to sell you one from the trunk of my car.
I love it. And one last question for you. Now, this book is absolutely amazing. Any hopes of it becoming a movie one day?
Well, it's funny that you should say that. My good friend and my editor, Gia Truesdale, who has been instrumental in getting this book written correctly and into the publisher, She and I have worked on a screenplay that I've just finished on the Mary Celeste, and we have it into some people that think they can pass it along to the right people. So if anybody
Yes.
on your listener network is interested in
Yes.
a very exciting sea adventure with great characters,
Yeah.
a love story, and a coming of age story, we'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely. You heard him, guys. If anyone and any of you know anybody that can make this $1 million movie, you know who to contact. Well, you know what? It was a pleasure meeting you, Steve. Thank you so much for coming on and just telling us this ghost mystery. We're so excited, and we really hope that we see it in the movie theater soon.
Oh, that's great. Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you for having me. Look forward to have a wonderful holiday season.
Yes, you too. You too, Steve. Take
Okay, bye-bye
care.
now. Bye.
Bye.